Let me ask you a question, Leo Dot. How many times have you taken responsibility for problems that were never yours to solve? How many times have you carried worries that belong to someone else? How many times have you looked at a person you care about and thought, if they would just change this one thing, their entire life would improve? Because that is exactly the energy surrounding you as June begins. The reading shows you watching someone closely, someone important, someone you care about deeply, and you can clearly see what is holding them back. You can see the habits, the decisions, the patterns, the behaviors that continue creating unnecessary struggles in their life. And naturally, your instinct is to help, to guide, to protect, to fix, to intervene. But June brings a very important lesson. Advice cannot help someone who has not yet decided to change. And honestly, this realization becomes incredibly liberating because for a long time, you have carried a silent burden, the burden of caring too much, the burden of protecting too much, the burden of worrying too much, the burden of trying to prevent pain before it happens, the burden of trying to accelerate lessons that belong to someone else's journey. But now, something shifts. The reading repeatedly shows the same message. Not every battle belongs to you. Not every crisis requires your intervention. Not every problem needs your solution. Not every storm needs your protection. And once you understand this, an enormous weight begins lifting from your shoulders. There is another beautiful energy emerging simultaneously. Connection, real connection, not superficial interaction, not obligations. Not social expectations, genuine connection. The reading shows a strong desire to reconnect with people who bring lightness into your life. Old friends, trusted companions, people who remind you who you truly are, people who make you laugh, people who help you breathe easier emotionally, people who make life feel less complicated. And honestly, this becomes very healing. Because there is a tremendous difference between being surrounded by people and being surrounded by the right people. June begins teaching you that difference. The more time you spend around supportive energy, the quieter your mind becomes. The lighter your heart becomes, the less anxiety you carry, the more clearly you see your own path. There is also a growing appreciation for your own company. And this is important. The reading does not show loneliness. It shows healthy solitude. Moments where you disconnect from external noise. Moments where you organize your thoughts, reflect on your life. Listen to your intuition. Reconnect with yourself. Many people run from silence. You begin finding answers within it. And honestly, some of the most important decisions of the month emerge during these quiet moments. Because when the noise disappears, your own wisdom becomes easier to hear. There is another significant shift taking place. You begin becoming far more selective about who receives access to your energy, who deserves your explanations, who deserves your trust, who deserves your time, who deserves your presence. And honestly, this is maturity because not everyone who enters your life is meant to remain there. Some people arrive for lessons, some arrive for growth, some arrive for a season. And some quietly reveal that they no longer belong in your future. The reading shows you recognizing this with remarkable clarity. Not through anger, not through resentment, through awareness. And awareness changes everything. The energy closing this first chapter is beautiful. It shows a Leo who is no longer trying to carry the entire world. A Leo who is learning the difference between helping and rescuing. A Leo who is beginning to protect their own peace with the same intensity they once used to protect everyone else. A Leo who is becoming more conscious of who adds value to their life and who simply consumes their energy. And honestly, that single realization begins transforming far more than you currently realize. Now, the reading begins revealing something extremely interesting, Dot, because the more I look at your energy, the more I see signs becoming impossible to ignore. Dot, not dramatic signs, dot, not frightening signs, dot, subtle signs, dot, the kind that speak directly to your intuition. And honestly, your intuition becomes much stronger during this period. You know those moments when someone suddenly comes to mind for no apparent reason. Then minutes later they call, they text, someone mentions them, or something connected to them appears unexpectedly. That is exactly the kind of energy surrounding you now. The connection between your intuition and your emotional world becomes unusually powerful. And there is one person who stands out more than anyone else, someone you love deeply. This could be a son, a daughter, a partner, a family member, someone you protect almost instinctively, someone whose happiness matters deeply to you. The reading shows an invisible emotional thread connecting you to this person. Stronger than usual, more noticeable than usual. You may wake up thinking about them, feel the sudden urge to call them, feel concerned without fully understanding why. Think about them randomly during the day, and then discover that something was actually happening in their life. The spiritual energy does not show danger. It does not show tragedy. It shows connection, a powerful emotional bond, because some people enter our lives so deeply that part of their energy continues speaking to ours regardless of distance. And June amplifies that sensitivity, but there is an important warning attached to this gift. Do not turn intuition into anxiety. This is crucial, because the reading shows a tendency to worry excessively, to imagine scenarios, to create possibilities, to suffer in advance over things that have not happened. You sense something, then your mind immediately begins filling in the blanks, and that is where balance becomes essential. Observe, listen, pay attention, but do not create burdens that do not exist, because your perception is strong, stronger than you realize, but perception becomes distorted when fear enters the picture. There is another beautiful energy appearing here. People trust you, perhaps more than you realize. The reading repeatedly shows others turning toward you when they need strength, when they need advice, when they need clarity, when they need stability, when they need reassurance, because you carry something rare, a sense of certainty, a sense of calm, a sense of leadership. Even when you are uncertain yourself, even when you are struggling privately, even when you are carrying your own concerns, people still look at you and see strength, and that has tremendous value. But here comes one of the most important lessons of the month. You cannot become everyone else's shelter while forgetting to build one for yourself. Read that again, because the reading shows you constantly protecting others, supporting others, guiding others, helping others. And while these qualities are beautiful, they become dangerous when they are not balanced, because even the strongest people need rest. Even leaders need support. Even protectors need protection. Even the people everyone depends on need a place where they can put their burdens down. And June begins teaching you exactly that, perhaps for the first time in a very long time. There is another word appearing repeatedly throughout this section of the reading, big. Not financially big, not materially big. Big emotionally, big spiritually, big personally, big professionally, big in terms of growth, because the reading shows something inside you becoming restless. You are no longer satisfied with simply surviving. You want expansion. You want progress. You want movement. You want achievements that once felt distant. You want to build something meaningful. You want to create something lasting. You want your efforts to lead somewhere greater. And honestly, this ambition feels healthy. It does not feel driven by ego. It feels driven by purpose. The energy repeatedly shows a Leo who is ready for the next level, ready to stop playing small, ready to stop limiting themselves, ready to stop settling for less than they know is possible, and that changes everything. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Leo awakening to a higher level of spiritual awareness, a Leo becoming more conscious of who truly matters, a Leo learning how to direct their strength not only toward protecting others, but also toward protecting themselves. And honestly, that may be one of the greatest transformations of the entire month. Now, the reading begins moving into an area that gains tremendous strength throughout June. Work, money, opportunities, growth, but not in the way you might expect, because the energy does not show a single door opening. It shows many doors appearing at the same time. And honestly, that creates a different kind of challenge. Discernment. The reading repeatedly shows invitations, offers, ideas, projects, possibilities, courses, partnerships, professional conversations, new commitments, opportunities that seem attractive at first glance. But here's the important part. Not every opportunity is truly an opportunity. And that may become one of the most valuable lessons of your entire month, because some paths look exciting simply because they are new. Some offers look promising simply because they are different. Some opportunities look profitable simply because they arrive unexpectedly. But the reading shows you becoming much more selective, much more strategic, much more aware of where your time and energy are actually being invested. You begin asking different questions. Not, can I do this? But, should I do this? Not, does this look good? But, does this move me closer to the life I actually want? And honestly, that shift changes everything, because many people remain trapped chasing every possibility. You begin learning how to recognize which possibilities deserve your attention. There is another very strong financial theme appearing. The reading shows you looking at your financial situation and thinking, I can manage, but I want more. And that distinction is important, because this energy does not come from desperation, it comes from vision. You are not simply trying to survive, you are trying to build, you are trying to grow, you are trying to create something larger than your current circumstances. The reading shows long-term goals reappearing, dreams that were placed on hold, projects that remained unfinished, ideas that never received enough attention. And suddenly, those possibilities begin returning to your mind, not as fantasies, as plans, as strategies, as objectives, because something inside you is becoming increasingly restless. You want greater freedom, greater security, greater independence, greater control over your future. And honestly, the energy supports that desire. There is another situation that deserves attention, a relationship of imbalance. And this is important because it does not necessarily involve romance. For some Leos, it does. For others, it appears as a partnership, a friendship, a professional arrangement, a shared responsibility, a family dynamic. The reading repeatedly shows a scale that is no longer balanced. You give more, you contribute more, you invest more, you sacrifice more, you carry more. And little by little, this realization becomes impossible to ignore. At first it appears as a feeling, then it becomes an observation, then eventually it becomes certainty. You begin recognizing that the exchange is unequal, that the effort is unequal, that the responsibility is unequal. And once you see it clearly, everything changes. The spiritual guidance here is interesting. It does not call for conflict. It calls for awareness, because awareness creates correction. Awareness creates boundaries. Awareness creates healthier decisions. And June gives you that awareness. There is another beautiful energy appearing simultaneously. Learning, growth, expansion of knowledge. The reading shows you becoming curious, researching, exploring, studying, gathering information, seeking advice, improving systems, improving plans, improving strategies. And honestly, this may generate more future success than any immediate opportunity, because your mind is becoming increasingly focused on long-term results. You begin thinking differently, planning differently, preparing differently. You stop focusing exclusively on today's outcome and start considering where today's decision will lead 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now. And that shift creates tremendous power. The chapter closes with a strong image, a Leo who is becoming increasingly strategic, increasingly selective, increasingly aware of where their energy belongs. Someone who is no longer willing to chase every opportunity. Someone who understands that true success is not about doing more things. It is about doing the right things. And that realization may become one of the most profitable lessons of the entire year. Now, the reading moves into one of the most exciting areas of your life during this period. Love, attraction, connection, presence, and honestly, the energy here feels incredibly strong, because there is something about you right now that people notice immediately. Not necessarily your appearance, not necessarily what you wear, not necessarily what you say. Your presence, the moment you enter a room, something changes. A meeting, a gathering, a social event, a celebration, even a simple conversation. The energy shifts because you arrived. And whether you realize it or not, people feel that. The reading repeatedly shows attention moving toward you, eyes following you, People becoming curious about you, people wanting to know more about you, people remembering you after the interaction ends. And honestly, this is not new. You've always carried a certain magnetism, but June amplifies it because there is a major difference between the Leo of several months ago and the Leo entering this period. Clarity. You know what you want. Or at least you know what you no longer want. And that changes everything. Because when someone knows exactly what they are looking for emotionally, they stop wasting energy. They stop entertaining confusion. They stop investing in situations that lead nowhere. They stop settling for less than they deserve. And the reading shows you reaching that point. Now pay close attention because this next message is extremely important. The strongest romantic energy surrounding you is not connected to appearance. It is connected to communication. Your words carry unusual power during this period. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you make people feel seen, the way you make people feel important, the way you create connection through conversation. This becomes your greatest advantage. The reading shows attraction developing through dialogue, through shared ideas, through meaningful conversations, through moments where people feel genuinely understood by you. And honestly, that creates a very powerful type of chemistry because physical attraction may start a connection, but emotional connection is what sustains it. And June repeatedly shows you creating exactly that. There is strong energy for new encounters, social invitations, dating opportunities, unexpected conversations, events, travel, online connections, new circles of people, new opportunities to meet someone interesting. And the beautiful part, much of this happens naturally, without forcing, without chasing, without trying too hard. Now, there is something fascinating appearing here. Many people around you believe that you still need healing before love can arrive, that you still need to fix something, change something, recover from something. But honestly, that is not what the reading shows. The reading shows readiness, maturity, awareness, experience. You are not entering June needing to rebuild yourself emotionally. You are entering June prepared to experience something, and that creates a completely different energy. Because many readings focus on healing. This one focuses on openness. You are not stuck. You are available for new experiences. There is also beautiful energy for those already in relationships. The reading shows increasing alignment, small moments of harmony, shared desires, shared plans, shared excitement. One person wants to travel. The other wants the same. One person wants more time together. The other feels the same. One person begins imagining the future. The other starts doing exactly that. And these small alignments strengthen the connection significantly. For single Leos, however, the message is very direct. Movement, the opposite of stagnation, the opposite of waiting, the opposite of hiding. The reading repeatedly shows opportunities appearing, but there is one condition. You must allow yourself to be seen. Because life cannot introduce people to you if you remain invisible. You cannot meet new energy while remaining disconnected from the world. And honestly, the universe appears determined to create opportunities. But you must participate. You must show up. You must say yes occasionally. You must allow life to find you. The energy closes this chapter with a beautiful image. A Leo becoming increasingly confident, increasingly magnetic, increasingly expressive. Someone whose natural charisma is opening emotional doors that have remained closed for a very long time. And perhaps most importantly, someone who finally understands that they do not need to become someone else to deserve love. They simply need to continue being fully themselves. Now the reading begins revealing something that may surprise many Leos. Because when I look at your energy during this period, I do not only see love. I do not only see money. I do not only see work. I see opportunities. And opportunities rarely arrive looking important. That is what makes them so powerful. The reading repeatedly shows small moments carrying enormous potential. A conversation, a message, an invitation, a recommendation, a chance encounter, a seemingly ordinary decision. Something that appears insignificant at first. Yet months later, you look back and realize that was the moment everything started changing. And honestly, this energy appears very strongly throughout June. There is a phrase that keeps appearing, do not ignore what seems small, because some of the biggest blessings entering your life during this period arrive quietly, without announcements, without guarantees, without dramatic signs. They arrive disguised as ordinary moments, and that is why awareness becomes so important. The reading shows you becoming increasingly observant, paying attention, listening carefully, recognizing possibilities that other people overlook. And honestly, this gives you a tremendous advantage, because while others wait for giant opportunities, you begin recognizing the value hidden inside smaller ones. There is another area demanding attention, your professional environment, and the energy here feels noticeably different. The reading shows tension around certain people, not necessarily around you, around them. People feeling pressure, people becoming impatient, people becoming reactive, people becoming emotionally overwhelmed, people carrying stress that they do not know how to manage. And because of this, the atmosphere around work becomes more sensitive than usual. You may notice short tempers, misunderstandings, overreactions, increased frustration, unexpected conflicts, people taking things personally, people struggling with pressure. But here is where your advantage appears. The reading shows you maintaining perspective. While others react emotionally, you observe. While others rush into conflict, you pause. While others lose control, you maintain balance. And honestly, this creates opportunities because emotional intelligence becomes one of your greatest strengths during this period. The reading repeatedly shows situations where saying less creates better outcomes. Not because you are avoiding problems, because wisdom understands timing. You begin recognizing when to speak, when to remain silent, when to push forward, when to step back, when to insist, when to wait. And this skill becomes incredibly valuable. There is another powerful message connected to communication, perhaps stronger than any other professional theme in the reading. Your words carry influence, more influence than you realize. People listen to you. People observe you. People notice how you handle challenges. People pay attention to your reactions, even when they never say it directly. And honestly, this creates an invisible form of leadership. You may not hold an official leadership position, yet people still look toward you. They watch how you respond under pressure. They watch how you treat others. They watch how you solve problems. They watch how you handle difficult situations. And because of this, your behavior carries weight. The reading suggests that your calmness becomes contagious, your confidence becomes noticeable, your maturity becomes respected, and opportunities emerge because of it. There is another lesson appearing repeatedly. Do not waste energy trying to win every argument. This is important because June shows several moments where conflict is available, opportunities to prove a point, opportunities to defend yourself, opportunities to demonstrate that you are right, and honestly, most of them are not worth it. The reading shows you destined for larger goals, larger achievements, larger opportunities. And people focused on larger goals do not need to win every small battle. They conserve energy. They choose their fights carefully. They protect their focus. And that is exactly what the universe is encouraging you to do. There is also a strong feeling that certain people are beginning to recognize your value in ways they never did before. Not because you changed, because your consistency is becoming impossible to ignore. The effort, the reliability, the leadership, the discipline, the resilience, the professionalism. People are noticing. And while recognition may not arrive immediately, the reading suggests that seeds are being planted. Important seeds. Seeds that eventually become opportunities. The energy closes this chapter with a powerful image. A Leo who is quietly influencing more people than they realize. A Leo whose maturity is creating opportunities. A Leo who understands that true leadership is not about controlling others, it is about controlling yourself. And honestly, that lesson may open doors that force alone never could. Before this reading moves toward its final chapters, there is something I need to talk about, Dot, because when I look at your energy now, I see a person standing at an interesting crossroads. Dot, Not a dramatic crossroads, not a crisis, transformation, the kind of transformation that happens quietly, the kind that begins inside your mind long before it becomes visible in your life. And honestly, this may be one of the most important phases of your entire year because something about your priorities is changing. What used to impress you no longer impresses you. What used to excite you no longer excites you. What used to feel important no longer feels important. And at first, this creates confusion because when your values begin changing, life temporarily feels unfamiliar. You start questioning things, questioning goals, questioning relationships, questioning routines, questioning directions. Not because you're lost, because you're evolving. The reading repeatedly shows a Leo who is becoming much more intentional, much more conscious, much more selective. You stop asking what can I get and start asking what actually matters. That question changes everything because it influences how you spend your time, how you spend your money, how you spend your energy, how you choose your relationships, how you choose your future. There is another fascinating theme appearing around personal growth. The reading shows you becoming increasingly aware of your own potential, not in an arrogant way, in an honest way, because for years you may have underestimated certain talents, certain abilities, certain strengths. You became so focused on what still needed improvement that you forgot to recognize how much you had already developed. But June begins changing that. The energy repeatedly shows moments where you surprise yourself, moments where you realize, I'm better at this than I thought. I'm stronger than I thought. I'm more prepared than I thought. I'm further along than I thought. And honestly, those realizations become incredibly empowering. There is also a strong connection to confidence, not confidence based on appearance, not confidence based on recognition, confidence based on experience. The kind that develops after surviving difficult seasons, the kind that develops after rebuilding yourself, the kind that develops after facing challenges and discovering that you are stronger than they were. And the reading shows this confidence growing steadily, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, solidly, authentically. There is another message connected to your future, and this one feels especially important. Stop comparing your timeline to someone else's. Because the reading repeatedly shows moments where you look around and wonder if you should be further ahead, further along, more successful, more accomplished, more established. But the spiritual message is very clear. You are measuring your life against journeys that were never meant to be yours. Everyone's path unfolds differently. Everyone's lessons arrive differently. Everyone's timing works differently. And honestly, much of the pressure you've been carrying comes from forgetting that. The reading shows a Leo who has made more progress than they realize. A Leo who has overcome more than they acknowledge. A Leo who has developed skills, wisdom, and resilience that cannot be measured through external achievements alone. And that matters, perhaps more than you think. There is also a beautiful energy surrounding self-trust. For a long time, you may have looked outside yourself for confirmation, for reassurance, for validation, for certainty. But now something changes. You begin trusting your own judgment more, trusting your instincts more, trusting your observations more, trusting your decisions more. And that trust creates momentum because confidence is not knowing every answer. Confidence is trusting yourself even when you don't. The reading repeatedly shows opportunities appearing because you finally stop doubting yourself. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You stop waiting for complete certainty, and you begin moving. And movement changes everything. The chapter closes with a powerful image. A Leo who is no longer trying to prove their worth. A Leo who already understands it. A Leo who is no longer chasing validation. A Leo who is building something meaningful. A Leo who is becoming increasingly aligned with their true purpose. And honestly, that alignment is creating far more opportunities than you can currently see. Because when your actions, values, and vision begin moving in the same direction, life starts responding differently. And June is the beginning of that process. Now, the reading begins. entering one of the most powerful phases of the month dot, because after all the lessons about boundaries, discernment, leadership, opportunities, and personal growth, something else begins emerging. Dot results, dot not complete results, dot not final results, dot but undeniable signs that your efforts are starting to move in the right direction. And honestly, this matters more than you realize, because there were moments when you questioned whether all your effort was actually leading somewhere. Moments when you worked hard and saw little return. Moments when you stayed disciplined while watching other people appear to advance faster. Moments when you wondered if your patience was being rewarded at all. The reading shows those doubts beginning to fade, not because life suddenly becomes easy, because evidence begins appearing, small victories, small confirmations, small breakthroughs, and together they create momentum. There is a phrase that appears repeatedly throughout this section. You are closer than you think. And honestly, that message applies to multiple areas of your life: financial goals, career goals, personal goals, creative projects, long-term dreams, even certain emotional situations. You are much closer than your frustration allows you to see, because frustration tends to focus on distance, progress focuses on movement, and June repeatedly shows movement. There is another powerful energy surrounding achievement. The reading shows you becoming increasingly strategic, less impulsive, less reactive, more patient, more deliberate, more focused on long-term success. And that shift changes everything, because there was a time when excitement alone could influence your decisions. Now you want sustainability, you want results that last. You want foundations, you want something real, and honestly, that maturity creates opportunities that impulsiveness never could. There is another interesting theme appearing: recognition, not necessarily public recognition, not necessarily applause, something deeper. People beginning to trust your judgment, trust your leadership, trust your consistency, trust your reliability. The reading shows individuals slowly recognizing what you bring to the table, and what makes this powerful is that the recognition comes naturally. You are not forcing it. You are not demanding it. You are simply becoming impossible to ignore, because consistency eventually speaks louder than promises. And June begins proving that. There is also a strong spiritual message connected to patience, because some of the things you want most are still developing behind the scenes. The reading repeatedly shows preparation, not delay. Preparation. And there is a huge difference between the two. A delay creates frustration. Preparation creates strength. The universe seems to be building certain opportunities carefully, creating foundations, aligning circumstances, putting pieces into position. And while part of you wants immediate results, whilst the spiritual energy keeps repeating, what is being built correctly will last much longer. That message appears again and again, especially regarding money, career, business, long-term goals, and major life changes. There is another realization emerging. You stop measuring success only through outcomes. You begin measuring success through growth, through discipline, through wisdom, through the person you have become. Because honestly, the Leo entering this period is not the same Leo who began the year. You think differently, plan differently, react differently, protect your energy differently, handle challenges differently, and those changes matter. They matter far more than many external achievements, because external success eventually follows internal growth. The reading also shows your intuition becoming unusually accurate. You start noticing patterns, recognizing motives, seeing situations more clearly, understanding people more quickly. And because of that, you avoid mistakes, you avoid distractions, you avoid unnecessary battles, not because you're lucky, because you're paying attention. And honestly, your awareness becomes one of your greatest assets. The chapter closes with a beautiful image, a Leo standing on the edge of a new level, not quite there yet, but close enough to feel it, close enough to sense it, close enough to know that something significant is coming. And perhaps for the first time in a long while, you stop asking whether success is possible and start asking what you're going to do when it finally arrives. The reading shows a Leo who is finally becoming aware of their own evolution, not the version of yourself that still needs work, not the version that still has goals to achieve, the version that has already grown, the version that has already survived, the version that has already overcome challenges that once seemed impossible. And honestly, you do not give yourself enough credit for that. The energy repeatedly shows a pattern. You focus on what is missing. You focus on what still needs improvement. You focus on what has not happened yet. You focus on the distance between where you are and where you want to be. But June begins encouraging a different perspective. Look at how far you have already come. Look at the situations you survived. Look at the lessons you learned. Look at the habits you changed. Look at the boundaries you built. Look at the wisdom you gained, because there are victories in your story that deserve recognition, victories that nobody saw, battles nobody knew existed, moments where you kept moving despite wanting to give up, moments where you stayed strong despite feeling exhausted, moments where you continued believing despite uncertainty, and those victories matter. There is another beautiful energy appearing around personal renewal. The reading shows something inside you waking up again. Ambition, not pressure. Not desperation, healthy ambition, the desire to create, to build, to improve, to expand, to reach the next level. And honestly, this energy feels incredibly powerful because it is no longer driven by proving yourself to others. It is driven by becoming who you know you can be. That changes everything, because goals based on validation eventually lose power. Goals based on purpose become unstoppable. There is also a very strong indication that your intuition continues strengthening, perhaps stronger than it has been in years. You begin sensing situations before they fully unfold. You begin noticing subtle details. You begin recognizing opportunities earlier. You begin identifying risks sooner. You begin understanding people more clearly. And this awareness creates tremendous advantages. The reading repeatedly shows moments where your instincts save you time, save you money, save you energy, simply because you trusted what you felt. There is another important message connected to your environment. The people around you are changing, not necessarily because they are different, because you are seeing them differently. The reading shows certain relationships becoming stronger, healthier, more supportive, more aligned. At the same time, other relationships begin fading naturally, not through conflict, not through drama, through clarity. You simply begin realizing that some people belong in your past more than your future. And honestly, that realization feels peaceful, because growth often requires space. And some connections only continue existing because we are afraid to let them go. June helps you see the difference. You see, there is another beautiful lesson appearing. You no longer need to carry every responsibility alone. This message keeps returning throughout the reading, because leadership does not mean carrying everything. Strength does not mean carrying everything. Success does not mean carrying everything. Sometimes true strength means knowing what to put down, knowing what to delegate, knowing what to release, knowing what no longer belongs to you. And that awareness creates freedom. The energy also suggests that your confidence begins influencing other people. Not through words, through example. People observe your growth, observe your discipline, observe your resilience, observe your ability to keep moving despite challenges. And whether they admit it or not, many are inspired by it, because leadership is not always loud. Sometimes leadership is simply refusing to quit. The chapter closes with a powerful image, a Leo standing stronger than they realize, wiser than they realize, closer to their goals than they realize. Someone who has spent years building foundations that are finally beginning to support something larger. And honestly, the next chapter of your life looks very different from the one you are leaving behind, because the person entering that chapter is no longer operating from survival. They are operating from purpose. As this cycle begins approaching its conclusion, the reading reveals one final shift that changes everything. And honestly, this shift has been building quietly for a very long time. Because for years, part of your energy has been focused on proving yourself, proving your value, proving your strength. Proving your competence, proving your intentions, proving your worth. And whether you realized it or not, that became exhausting. The reading shows something changing now. You stop feeling the need to convince everyone. You stop feeling the need to explain every decision. You stop feeling the need to justify every choice. And honestly, that freedom feels incredible. Because one of the greatest sources of emotional exhaustion has been carrying the opinions of people who were never going to understand your journey anyway. The reading repeatedly shows a Leo becoming more independent emotionally, not isolated, not disconnected, independent. You begin understanding that validation is not a requirement for progress. Approval is not a requirement for success. Agreement is not a requirement for happiness. And once that realization settles into your spirit, your entire energy changes. There is another strong theme appearing around confidence. But this confidence feels different from anything that came before. It is not based on appearances, not based on status, not based on recognition. It is based on experience. You have survived too much to keep doubting yourself. You have learned too much to keep ignoring your intuition. You have overcome too much to keep questioning your resilience. And June repeatedly reminds you of that truth. There is also a very important message connected to the future. The reading shows something growing slowly, steadily, consistently, and honestly, this may frustrate part of you. Because Leo often prefers visible movement, clear victories, immediate progress, but the energy here feels different. The growth is happening beneath the surface. Like roots before branches, like foundations before buildings, like preparation before achievement. The spiritual message keeps repeating, do not confuse slow progress with lack of progress. Because some of the most important developments of your life are taking shape right now. Even if you cannot see all of them yet, there is another fascinating realization emerging. You begin noticing how much energy you wasted in the past trying to control outcomes, trying to predict everything, trying to prevent every mistake, trying to guarantee every result. And honestly, that awareness becomes liberating because June teaches you something powerful. You do not need perfect certainty to move forward. You simply need enough faith in yourself to take the next step. And that changes your relationship with opportunity. You stop waiting for guarantees. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. You stop waiting for every answer. You begin acting, and action creates momentum. There is also a beautiful shift happening around your relationships. The reading shows healthier dynamics forming naturally, less chasing, less forcing, less emotional labor, more balance, more reciprocity, more honesty, more peace. And honestly, this feels long overdue because part of your growth has been learning that not every relationship should require constant effort to survive. Some connections are meant to flow. Some people are meant to meet you halfway. Some relationships are meant to feel easy, and June begins proving that. There is another important lesson. Stop underestimating your influence. People notice more than they tell you. They notice your persistence. They notice your attitude, they notice your discipline, they notice how you recover after setbacks, they notice how you keep moving forward. And while you may not always receive recognition immediately, your example is impacting people in ways you cannot currently see. The reading closes this chapter with a powerful image, a Leo standing at the edge of something larger. Not because luck suddenly appeared, not because someone handed them success, because years of growth have prepared them for it. And perhaps the most beautiful part, you are finally beginning to believe that too. Before we close this reading, there is one final message that continues appearing with incredible strength. And honestly, it may be the most important message of the entire month, because after everything we've explored, the responsibilities, the opportunities, the relationships, the leadership, the intuition, the growth, the ambition, the emotional lessons, one truth remains at the center of it all. You are becoming the person you have been preparing to become for years, not overnight, not through luck, not through magic, through experience. The reading repeatedly shows a Leo who has spent a long time learning through mistakes, learning through disappointments, learning through victories, learning through losses, learning through situations that forced growth. And now June begins revealing the results of that learning. not all at once, but clearly enough for you to recognize it. There is a phrase that keeps appearing. You are stronger than you think. And honestly, that phrase is not describing physical strength. It is describing resilience, the ability to continue moving when things become difficult, the ability to keep believing when results take time, the ability to adapt when plans change, the ability to rebuild when circumstances force you to start over. The reading shows that resilience becoming one of your greatest assets. There is also a powerful spiritual message connected to intuition. You are beginning to trust yourself more, perhaps more than you have in years, not because you suddenly know everything. Because experience has taught you that your instincts are often right. You notice patterns faster. You recognize warning signs earlier. You understand people's intentions more clearly. You sense opportunities before others do. And honestly, this creates a tremendous advantage moving forward. The reading repeatedly shows answers arriving from within, not from experts, not from outsiders, not from endless opinions, from your own inner wisdom, because one of the greatest shifts happening now is that you finally start listening to yourself. There is another beautiful energy surrounding the months ahead, renewal, not the kind that destroys everything before rebuilding. A healthier renewal, a gradual evolution, new goals, new opportunities, new people, new experiences, new perspectives. The reading suggests that June is not the destination. It is the beginning of a larger chapter. A preparation period, a foundation building period, a period where life starts positioning you for something greater. And this is why patience remains important. Because not everything that is valuable arrives immediately. Some things need time. Some things need preparation, some things need the right conditions before they can fully emerge. The reading repeatedly reminds you of that. What is being built correctly lasts longer. What is rushed often collapses. And honestly, your energy now feels much more focused on building something that lasts. There is also a final message about self-recognition. Stop focusing only on what remains unfinished. Stop measuring yourself only by future goals. Stop overlooking how much you have already achieved, because the reading clearly shows victories, invisible victories, private victories, personal victories, moments where you chose growth over comfort, moments where you chose courage over fear, moments where you kept moving despite uncertainty, moments where you refused to quit. Those victories matter, perhaps more than any external achievement, because they created the person you are today. And honestly, the person you are becoming is far more prepared than you realize. The final image of this reading is powerful. A Leo standing confidently at the threshold of a new level. Not because life suddenly became perfect, not because every challenge disappeared, because you finally understand your own strength. You finally understand your own value. You finally understand your own potential. And once that understanding becomes permanent, everything changes. The opportunities become easier to recognize. The relationships become healthier. The decisions become clearer. The future becomes brighter. And the path forward becomes much easier to trust. The month closes with one final truth. While some people will still be watching your journey, you will be far too busy building your next chapter to worry about their opinions. And honestly, that may be the greatest sign of growth of all. The lion is no longer trying to prove who they are. The lion already knows.